Let's talk Star Wars Unlimited. And before we talk Star Wars Unlimited, I want to make one thing very clear. This is my first take attempting to record this video. I have definitely not done multiple takes over multiple days where I have messed up horribly, and I definitely did not finish recording my first decent take and realize the mic was off. I didn't do that. Anybody that tells you I did that is lying. I'm a perfectly competent individual. I know what I'm doing. This is effortless to me. But anyway, let's talk Star Wars Unlimited. I have the Jump to Lightspeed article in front of me. If you don't know, this is the announcement for Star Wars Unlimited's fourth set. And that marks the beginning of year 2, which seems like a really great time to sit down and talk about what really went right for Star Wars Unlimited in year 1 and what didn't. There are some areas that Fantasy Flight needs to fix things and tighten up a bit in year 2, and this is a good time to talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is sealed prices. They're not really something that negatively impacts me and you. I'm going to assume that the majority of people that watch this video are just players and not shop owners, store owners. And for you and me, seeing low box prices is wonderful. The lower the box price gets, the better if your goal is just to play the game. If your goal is just to play the game, you want to spend low amounts of money and get high amounts of cards. But if you're running a shop and you want to support this game long term, consistently low box prices, specifically box prices below MSRP, can start to get concerning. This is a box of Spark of Rebellion. It's $88. MSRP, I believe, is $100 or $120. I have recorded this video far too many times for me to not have looked that up, but I don't actually know which it is. But either way, $88 is lower than MSRP. Now, I don't know what price the stores are getting them for, but I can assure you they're not making a massive profit at this price point. This is not the end of the world. Every game has sets that don't perform as well, sets that don't generate as much interest, sets that don't necessarily have the best profit margins. Stores are often capable of taking a bit of a hit for a less successful set, and then they'll rebound the next time a set sells really well. Here's the problem. This is not the least successful set. This is the most successful set. If we look at set 2, these are selling for $70, which is definitely a loss for stores. And these are set 3 boxes selling for $67, noticeably below MSRP in a big way. All 3 sets are selling for below MSRP. Set 1 was selling for quite a bit above for a while because they underprinted it, and is now post reprint selling for significantly lower. I don't think this is the end of the world. They underprinted a bit. That kind of sucks, but this sort of thing happens. Set 2 and 3, however, were just overprinted. I think they must have overcompensated, and these sets were overprinted immediately. These are sets that are widely available. You can see, if I go through the TCG player listings, there are a lot of boxes available for very low prices. These sets are not going to get more expensive anytime soon. And that kind of sucks if you're a store. I'm not going to pretend to be particularly economically sound. I don't have a great deal of advice for stores or for Fantasy Flight Games when it comes to working out a system that works and printing the correct amount of your product. All I'm saying is that this is something I'm personally keeping an eye on for year 2, because if you don't see a bit of stabilization in box prices and a bit of a return to MSRP for products, stores are going to start thinking of this as a game that consistently loses them money. And that's a problem for this game specifically, because I think one of the biggest positives to Star Wars Unlimited is their commitment to in-person play and the development of local communities via the local game store. That's only possible if local game stores like your game, and local game stores will only like and carry your game if you are not making them hemorrhage money. Again, not something that personally impacts each individual player, but something to keep an eye on for year 2. The other thing I would very much like to keep an eye on for year 2 is legendary selection. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the set 1 legendaries as an example. Avenger through Change of Heart. Now, not every single one of these cards is an equal hit, but most of them are pretty big hits. Most of these cards are valuable things to pull if you are a casual Star Wars fan that just cares about the IP, or if you are a competitively minded player who really just likes card games. These cards are depicting characters like Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader, Boba Fett, the Millennium Falcon is in here, Mace Windu is in here. These are things that if you're even a very basic, core level casual Star Wars fan, you are going to see these characters and you go, oh, cool, I got a Darth Vader, that's exciting. Oh, cool, I got a Luke Skywalker, that's exciting. And on the flip side, if you're not so much into the Star Wars IP, or if you're somewhere in the middle and you really just like card games and you care about cards that are immediately playable, these cards are playable. The double aspect cards, particularly Cunning and Vigilance, I would say are meta-defining. Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader themselves are very powerful. Cards like Avenger and Home 1 see a lot of play. There are duds in here, of course. There are always going to be cards that suck from every set. Black 1 stands out as probably the worst legendary in the set by a significant margin, but it's not the only card that is maybe not a hit on the level of Vigilance. Not every card can be to that level. If every card is that level of popular, power creep has gotten out of control. It's too early for that. So I understand that not every legendary can be an equal hit, but across the board, these legendaries are interesting to trading card game fans and to Star Wars fans. And if we scroll up, that theme doesn't quite continue to the same degree. Evacuate through Supreme Leader Snoke are what the set 2 legendaries are. And many of these cards are not playable. Many of these cards, forget not playable, I have not seen play. Or I have not seen played. These are cards that I have never actually seen used in the game once. Cards like Rule with Respect and Second Chance are great examples of that. And many of these cards also don't depict Star Wars IP fixtures to the same degree that the original trilogy set did, which is not the end of the world. This is a bit of a differently themed set. Not everything can be as popular as Luke and Vader, but some of these choices are a bit puzzling. I think the only character in here that I would even approach naming as a tier 1 in terms of popularity, a tier 1 character, is the Mandalorian. Rey and Kylo are main characters of their trilogy, but it's the least popular of the trilogies. I'm not going to get into the whole debate about whether or not the sequels are good, but it's just an objective fact that even though I'm a bit of a Disney Star Wars apologist, Disney Star Wars is less popular than the older stuff. As somebody that opened 3 copies of the Finalizer in 2 boxes, I can assure you that neither the Star Wars fan nor the card game fan in me was at all excited to see any more than 1 copy. And even that first copy, I was like, well, I could have done better than that. That's not to say that every single thing here is a miss. Poe Dameron is a very playable card. Crate Dragon and Snoke are both present in my Bosk Blue list. Kylo's TIE Silencer is pretty relevant in a wide variety of aggressive space decks due to its really good stat line. I think as more ships are printed with that stat line, Kylo's TIE Silencer will see decreased relevance, but for now it's an excellent card. But this is maybe just a one-off. Let's scroll up. This set 3, from General Grievous to now there are 2 of them, all prequel themed. And prequel themes are prequel themed stuff is generally just an automatic just smash hit with people in my age bracket. I'm 24. For the generation that grew up with the prequels, this is core Star Wars to many of these people. This is the most popular Star Wars for a large demographic of Star Wars fans. But there are a lot of characters missing here. Anakin, Obi-Wan, Yoda are not present. Count Dooku has been given a rare but is not a legendary here. He has been given 3 cards, so I'm not complaining too much about that. I'm just pointing out that many of the main characters of the prequel era have not received legendaries. That's not to say none of them have. Again, there are some hits here. General Grievous is an exciting character, and with a stat line like that, that's a very playable card. Darth Maul is a playable card and a relevant popular character. But some of these cards, I just don't really understand the choice to make them legendary. I'm going to pick out Planetary Invasion, to be specific, as a card that just has no business being a legendary. This is taking up a legendary slot. It's a win more card. If you are playing this card, you are probably going to win anyway. It's an untap, gain stats effect that is designed to have you get an extra swing in and kill your opponent. But again, you're already winning if you're playing this card. And it's not a particularly exciting card from a lore perspective either. Planetary Invasion, when I hear Planetary Invasion, I think of the iconic scene of the battle droids unfolding on Naboo. This is not even that. This is just some tanks in a field. This is not a bad card to put in your set. I think this is a great rare to put in your set. This is a rare where if you opened it, you'd go, oh, this looks pretty fun, this is cool. But if you open this as one of your only legendaries for a box, you are going to be irritated, I think. This is not a card that very many people are going to be excited about. Cards like Unlimited Power and the Invasion of Christophsis, and I don't know how to pronounce this word, but whatever this Assault card is, are similar. Now, the Invasion of Christophsis, there's a chance that this will see play if a Separatist deck ever gains relevance. I'm not calling all of these cards complete duds, but when you're looking at a Clone Wars set or a prequel set and you're expecting Anakin and Obi-Wan and all this, and they only really see any amount of presence at the lower levels of rarity, specifically as common leaders. I think Anakin is a starter deck card. This really takes away from the possibility of having extremely popular, sought-after chase cards in your set, which is what drives sales. Some of these character cards are interesting. Ahsoka Tano, of course, is a main character in the era and is a very popular card, I'm sure. But if I sit here and I ask my family, for example, I say, do you know who Anakin Skywalker is? Most people, whether it's my family or people on the street, most people are going to be like, yeah, I know Anakin Skywalker. If I say, do you know Yoda? A lot of people are going to be like, yeah, of course I know Yoda. If I walk up to a random person on the street, I go, do you know who Ki-Adi-Mundi is? They're going to take a few big steps back. They're not going to say yes. They're going to approach me with some caution. This is not the sort of character that sells packs. I'm not saying it shouldn't be made. I'm just saying that maybe Fantasy Flight Games should more aggressively pursue the creation of chase cards, aside from just showcases, which I think is a great mechanic. Aside from just showcases, they should more aggressively pursue the creation of chase cards for their sets and ensure that popular characters are appearing in a multitude of sets, especially while the game is this young. If in 7 sets they decide to not print another, they're like, we really don't need our 6th Anakin legendary, I'm going to say fair enough. But when the game is this young, I would definitely err on the side of caution and put in things that a wide variety of people are going to find interesting. Which brings us to Jump to Lightspeed, which has one thing that I really like, a couple of things I like actually, and one thing I really don't. In the spirit of being a Hall of Fame hater, I'm going to scroll down to the thing I don't like first. Carbonite packs. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan not just because I enjoy being a hater, but because I don't like the effect they've had on Magic. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Carbonite packs are increased price packs sold for an increased price where all of the cards are foil or some other similar special art treatment. This is not inherently harmful. If you're the type of person that really cares about special art and you want to shell out a little extra money to get your special art, it's not the end of the world. But what this does, this has a few unintended side effects in most cases. First of all, Carbonite packs are, if they're anything like collector packs, are going to have art treatments that are not in normal packs. That's why people buy them. But if you're trying to drive sales, if you're trying to make your game a long-term success, which is synonymous with trying to drive sales, You want to put interesting chase cards, interesting things to pull in your base level packs. You want people buying, you don't care about whether they're buying the big expensive stuff. You want people buying your packs. So if you've thought up this cool new art treatment or this cool special thing that you can put in a pack that increases people's chances of going out and buying their packs and trying to get that card, put it in the base level packs. Now, the cards that are also in base level packs are now going to be a lot less interesting to open, because if every single card in here is a foil or a hyperspace or something along those lines, the market's going to get flooded with a whole bunch of foils and hyperspaces, because every single card in here is one of those. Which means when you open a foil or a hyperspace or a hyperfoil, it's going to be a lot less valuable than it was in sets before prestige packs or carbonite packs. That means that opening base level packs is less interesting. The bar for what is an interesting hit is going to be higher once you make foils an extremely common thing on the secondary market. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. They have said, first of all, no unique cards are going to be present in Carbonite Edition packs. There isn't going to be any sort of special subset where you have to buy these expensive cards or expensive packs to get special cards. So if you're trying to open, the cards to build a deck, you're not going to be like, oh, I have to buy a Carbonite pack. Thankfully, these are also going to be limited print run. These are not going to be printed repeatedly. Once they're gone, they're gone. So if the print run stays relatively low, if they find the balance where the price is reasonable, but the supply is limited, that can reduce the impact of flooding the market with a bunch of foils, but I just don't necessarily see it as worth the risk this early into the game's lifespan. In Magic, I can excuse it a little bit. Magic collectors are an established group that are pretty willing to eat up whatever product you release. I can't necessarily blame Wizards of the Coast for doing collector packs when there's so much demand. But in a game this young, I think that splitting packs into multiple product types is a mistake. I worked at a card shop for a relatively short amount of time, and even in that relatively short amount of time, I saw a surprising amount of customers that were just baffled by the different types of packs available to Magic players. Many people loved the Lord of the Rings crossover, and they'd walk in and they'd say, I'd really love a pack of Lord of the Rings. You got any Lord of the Rings? And I'd say, yes. Do you want a draft booster, a set booster, a collector booster, or perhaps a jumpstart booster? And I'd give them a hint. I'd say, don't pick the Jumpstart booster. Jumpstart Lord of the Rings was terrible. But that's besides the point. And they would still be faced with 3 to 4 options, and some of them would say, oh, well, I just want this pack, and they'd list off exactly what they want. But some of them, even people that play Magic, would kind of look like a deer in the headlights, and they'd be, oh, there's a lot of options now, isn't there? And I'd say, yeah, there's a lot of options. And it became incredibly confusing on a set-to-set basis about what was available in what pack. And that obscures value for the customer, and it kind of messes with sales a bit, and it creates a worse buying experience when you start to split things off into multiple pack types. I'm not saying this is going to be that bad. I'm just saying it's something that I'm a little hesitant about seeing this early. But I've gone on enough about Carbonite packs. Let's talk about the good stuff in this set really quickly. Just inject a little bit of positivity, because I am looking forward to the second year of Star Wars Unlimited. And in case it's unclear, I do think this is a fantastic game. First of all, I like this art. One of my big complaints when I did my initial video on Star Wars Unlimited right before the game released was that the art was all over the place. I'm not calling it bad. Some of it really sucks. Most of it was fine, but the art direction was a little scattered. The game didn't necessarily have a cohesive look, and I think this art is a really great representation of what I personally am starting to view as Star Wars Unlimited's distinctive look. The heavy shading, I'm not an art person, so I might not have the most eloquent terminology, but the way that this art is composed, I look at it and I go, okay, yeah, that's Star Wars Unlimited art, and I don't think that's a bad thing. There are still going to be some slightly off-the-wall designs, some art pieces that I'm just not a fan of, but across the board, I would say Star Wars Unlimited art is getting better, and that's pretty important, so I'm happy to see that. But I'm more interested in mechanics, and this Boba Fett card depicts 2 brand new mechanics, one of which I don't really care about indirect damage. It's a cool mechanic to have. It does kind of bother me that apparently indirect damage is not going to break shields, it's going to go through them. That seems odd, but I love the piloting mechanic. And the reason I love the piloting mechanic is not because I think it's going to have a tremendous impact on the meta or anything. It's because it's pretty directly copied from the Decipher CCG, which is my favorite card game of all time, and also the reason why I like Star Wars. It's both the reason I like card games and the reason I like Star Wars, which means it's pretty formative to a lot of my long-term interests. So seeing a mechanic, this mechanic is very similar to the piloting mechanic in that game. Seeing this mechanic in play in the early sets of Star Wars Unlimited only serves to confirm my suspicion that, as I stated in a previous video, somebody on the dev team is a bit of a fan of the Decipher CCG like I am, and I'm thrilled to see that. But across the board, I'm not going to go through card by card, but a lot of these cards look interesting. A lot of these cards are probably going to shake up the meta. I think the increased presence of space units is going to shake up the meta pretty significantly, and that's something I'm happy to see. The number one thing I'm looking for when it comes to year 2 of Star Wars Unlimited is increased complexity. That's really my only note when it comes to Star Wars Unlimited from a game perspective. There are a lot of things that I'm hesitant about business-wise. Carbonite packs, that's a business decision. Sealed prices, that's a business thing. Putting in legendaries that are going to drive pack sales, that's on the business side of things, if you really think about it. None of these things, really, are about gameplay. My only gameplay note is more of the same. I've been having fun every single time I play this game. I think there's a surprising amount of depth in a very simple rules package, which is the perfect way to do things. It's easy to learn and kind of hard to master. It's not the hardest game that is out there. It's not the most difficult card game that's out there, but there are some layers to the gameplay, and with an increased card pool and some slightly increased complexity of individual cards, I think there's a lot of room for this game to evolve in really interesting ways. So I think you can expect to see a lot more Star Wars Unlimited on the channel in year 2 than you saw in year 1. This is a game that I'm continuously getting more interested in the more I play it. But for now, that's really all I have to say. Thanks for listening to me rant, and I hope you have a nice day.